Behold, this is the protest in Wuhan City. Comrades, this is the protest in Wuhan. On February 8, 2023, Wuhan retirees gathered in front of the municipal government to protest and demand answers from the mayor on health insurance reform. The government deployed a large number of armed and special police. The protesting crowd demanded a public explanation from government officials as to why the monthly medical subsidy of more than 260 RMB or US $38 has been reduced to 80-something RMB or just $12 US. Wuhan residents told overseas Chinese media that nearly 2 million retirees were affected, and the protesting crowd demanded that the medical subsidy be restored to its original standard. Most protesters are grassroots retired employees from various industries in Wuhan with generally low incomes. The healthcare reform will affect them greatly. The retired elderly are already prone to illness and need to visit pharmacies frequently. The reduced amount of money will have to be covered by the retirees themselves.
姐妹们呢，快来呀，来维权呐！你看那人山人海的人呢，哎，对吧？讲边上交通过去。
Sisters, come on, come and defend your rights. Look, people are everywhere.
你看，人真是多。
Look, they are all here to defend their rights.
快来呀，快来呀！唱歌就给我听了的。
Come on, everyone. Health insurance is a big issue. You have to fight for it yourself. You have to defend your rights.
这是大家的利益呀，自己要来呀，要维权呐。前头在唱歌，都在喊。
Now people are singing and cheering, singing "The East is Red," singing the songs of Chairman Mao's era.
那个年代的，要一起安的，这个安的有没用的，太稀散了，对吧？
Even the Dama of China is revolting. The government is deducting our money. It's infuriating. Everyone is fighting.
One article on the new health insurance policy has upset many people. It states that flexibly employed people who buy employee health insurance will no longer receive money back until they retire. Flexible employment means not having a stable, full-time job. For example, street vendors are considered flexible employment. Previously, such people would pay about RMB 415 or US $61 a month to buy employee health insurance and receive US $30 a month back. Now, they will have to pay the monthly fee but not receive any money back until they retire. Some individuals at the scene also protested against the government's cutback on funeral subsidies. Over the past few years, the funeral subsidy for retirees has been reduced from US $10,300 to US $4,418, and last year to US $2,800. From the video, the protesters looked upset with the government. Pushing and bumping occurred at the scene, but there was no big conflict. It seems that the special police showed restraint as the crowd consisted of mostly seniors. The protesters consisted of tens of thousands of retirees. A social media chat group of the participants said that a larger protest has been scheduled for February 15th if the government fails to address the problem. The rally shows that the Wuhan municipal government has run out of money and is suffering from a huge financial deficit. Thus, this so-called medical insurance reform. This is definitely not just the financial situation of Wuhan, but many local governments in China are basically in the same situation. So it's probably just the beginning of a story that involves China's weakest sector at the moment, the senior citizens. Their future is truly worrisome.
This group of police officers blocked us from approaching the officials. How is this supposed to be the Communist Party is good and socialism is good? Who wants to come out on this rainy day? How can the government do this? To save money, you first take advantage of us, the common people. Why don't you start with the government officials? You are outrageous. We have experienced the Cultural Revolution, the reform and opening up, and the layoffs. What haven't we gone through? Now I realize how good communism is. It's really good.
好多特警的车子啊，人呐，这把那个位置呢。
Comparable to the insecurity of medical insurance is China's pension insurance. Many young Chinese are now beginning to worry that it's going to be a Ponzi scam and that they may not receive their pensions in the end. According to China's official figures, by the end of 2021, 1.03 billion people were covered by basic old age insurance. China's basic medical insurance covers 1.36 billion people, and the participation rate has stabilized at over 95%, so universal medical insurance is basically realized. A well-known Chinese economist and his team published a report in which they wrote, China has built up a basic pension insurance system covering 1 billion people with a participation rate of over 90% in just 3 decades, and has maintained a pension level that has risen for 17 consecutive years, laying a solid foundation for its people to live a better life. But now, this economist is under heavy fire from common folks in China, as we will see later in the episode. As the chief economist of Evergrande Group, a major real estate developer, Ren Zheping has studied the looming demographic crisis. He has called for more proactive government policies, including maternity subsidies, longer maternity and paternity leave, and greater protection of women's rights in the workplace. But these recommendations come too late. The mounting demographic pressures have highlighted the fact that the CCP hasn't done enough to avert what would happen in the coming decades. In 2023, when China's population is declining and the economy is shrinking, these reforms to the health insurance system are to be expected, as the CCP's capacity in certain areas is grossly lacking. On January 17, 2023, China's National Bureau of Statistics released the latest population data with a natural population growth rate of negative 0.6%. It's the first time the CCP has acknowledged negative population growth. This tipping point has arrived faster and more abruptly than many experts had predicted, making it all the more dramatic to see the beginning of a crisis. China's population has shrunk by 850,000 in 2022. According to international standards, the aging rate of a society is assessed according to the ratio of 65-year-olds to the population. 7 to 14% is considered an aging society, 14 to 20% is an aged society, and more than 20% is considered a super-aged society. In September 2022, China's National Health Commission held a press conference to brief its work on seniors since November 2012. Data shows that China's senior population over 65 years old reached 191 million in 2020, accounting for 13.5% of the total population. We doubt that the ratio of 13.5%, not 14%, was carefully crafted by the staff because reaching 14% would mean that officially China was declared to be an aged society. At the same time, the National Health Commission predicted that around 2035, China's senior population aged 60 and above would exceed 400 million, accounting for more than 30% of the population, i.e. entering the super-aged stage. At that time, the official Chinese media CCTV News reported that an official from the Department of Aging and Health of the National Health Commission admitted that China's aging phenomenon was characterized by high volume, fast speed, large differences, and demanding tasks. It's a relatively honest statement, because according to even the official report, China took 21 years, namely by 2021, to step into a super-age stage, meaning the percentage of people aged 65 and above had surpassed 14%. It's shorter than France's 126 years and the UK's 46 years and Germany's 40 years. China has become a typical country that has aged before it becomes rich. Even according to official figures, China's GDP per capita is close to the lower limit of developed economies. At the same time, its aging level of 13.5% has already surpassed the average aging level of 10.8% in the middle and high-income economies. China is now under the pressure of both economic growth and the burden of an old-age society. Worst of all, it looks like the CCP cannot find any effective way to address the demographic crisis, and the trend toward fewer children will continue to deepen the aging problem. The number of births in China continues to hit record lows. In 2022, China's fertility rate was 1.18, or an average of 1.18 children per mother, a record low and well below the UN recommended population replacement rate of 2.1. The population replacement rate is the number of children a couple can have to replace themselves during their childbearing years. Again, it should be noted that all of these figures are from official Chinese releases. As we know, the Chinese government is good at retouching data, so the reality is likely to be even worse. The one-child policy and loose abortion regulations implemented in 1980 have resulted in more boys being born than girls. According to data from the UN, between the years 1970 and 2020, China accounted for 51% of the global gender imbalance, or lack of female population. In 2015, when the one-child policy was changed to a two-child policy, China's fertility rate increased, but not enough to reverse the population decline. In 2016, the number of births reached a record high of 17.86 million. Compared to 2016, the number of births in 2022 was 9.56 million, a little more than half of that, meaning that China's births plummeted by 46% in 7 years. Moreover, Chinese families still prefer boys. The sex ratio at birth in 2021 was 112, meaning that for every 100 girls born, 112 boys were born. During the same period, China's male population outnumbered its female population by 30 million. When the Chinese Communist government becomes aware of this problem, they are anxious. Since 2021, they've been putting out this slogan on many occasions. It's good to have children for the country. It's good to have more children to support the elderly. 2 is not enough. 3 is just right. But reversing the fertility decline won't be easy. So far, no country has seemingly succeeded. Countries like Finland, Estonia, Italy, Japan, Australia, and Hungary offer cash incentives to citizens for having more children. But it doesn't seem to work because no amount of government subsidies can make up for the cost of having more children. In China, where the economy is experiencing a downturn and the social welfare system is inadequate, it is almost impossible to reverse the current crisis. On February 8, 2023, the topic of China's marriage registration decline for the 8th consecutive year hit the hot search of the Chinese web. It resulted in ridicule from many Chinese people. The topic was then removed in a hurry. Data from China's State Civil Affairs Bureau shows that China's marriage rate has been declining yearly since 2013. In 2013, the marriage rate was 9.9 per 1,000, and the number of registered marriages was 13,469,000. The number of registered marriages in 2021 dropped to 7,636,000, declining for 8 consecutive years. In contrast, the divorce rate in China has increased from 0.96 per 1,000 in 2000 to 3.1 per 1,000 in 2020. Chinese netizens have this to say: "Don't worry, it'll be a record low every year from now on. Be optimistic. Although the marriage registration is the lowest in the last 8 years, it is certainly the highest in the next 8 years." Some so-called experts in China have even suggested imposing penalties for families that don't want to have more children.
This time, the expert said that people who don't reproduce should be fined. In the past, when people wanted to have children, you had a one-child policy, causing those who had more children to hide and run away. They fled in the north and south of China with small sacks on their back, skirting around and hiding the baby after giving birth. Those who weren't fast enough were caught and penalized. You took everything from their homes, and if they had no money, you took away the household appliances. Now you see that the population has dropped. You start to penalize people for not having babies. But the outbreak is so bad that people can't afford to have children even if they want to. We haven't even figured out how to survive yet, nor do we know when the epidemic will end and if we will be healthy. So you want to treat us like old souls and make us have babies. 7, 8, or more than 10 babies in a single birth. You are an expert. You can be a role model. Why don't you have a dozen children first? What kind of economic conditions are there now? We have to tie our necks to save on food, not to mention having babies. The car loan and the house loan, which one can you charge less? None. You don't lower the fees for children's schooling either. The government promises good policies, offering this and that kind of benefits. But which of them have actually gone to the hands of people? They all went into the hands of the wolf-like greedy officials. You all have money in your homes. Over the past 2 years, the money that we, the people, have made has either been negative or wiped out. How much money do you think it takes to raise a son? From building him a home, to getting him engaged, to getting married, to having a baby. It costs more than 1 million RMB or 150,000 US dollars. Nowadays, if families are financially disadvantaged and can't get their sons a wife, how can you expect them to have babies?
Among the panel of experts who advocate the penalty for not having babies is the economist mentioned earlier, Ren Zheping. On February 8, 2023, he again made a trending topic on Chinese social media, asking, would lowering the legal marriage age to 18 increase the rate of first marriages? Professor Ren suggested lowering the legal age of marriage to 18 and protecting the reproductive rights of single women. It means that children born to unmarried women should have the same rights as children born in legal marriages. The idea drew a flood of criticism and the topic was removed from Weibo on the same day. To most people, the government has barely begun to address the deeper reasons why many young couples choose to have only one child, or no child at all. Netizens have left comments such as, "Can an 18-year-old girl raise a baby? Can you afford to pay for the formula? It's scary to even think about it. When the country is short of children, you can have children out of wedlock. When there was no shortage, the one-child policy was strictly enforced, claiming one child was good, and the government would take care of the elderly. After loosening the birth policy, they now say the elderly cannot rely on the government. Now the state doesn't care about anything. All are let loose. Even non-marital births are encouraged. Now the country only cares about the population. Aging is becoming more serious, affecting the future workforce. Future children don't have to get married. Why bother? What follows would be the consequences of moral decay and social chaos. Children born out of wedlock can enjoy the same rights as children from a marriage. Recruitment agencies want to recruit single people. Then why do we have to get married? Why do we want to have children after getting married? Whether we'll live to collect our pensions is still a big question. Discussions of the sort don't just stay on paper. In reality, recently, a number of governments, including Sichuan province, have introduced new regulations to encourage illegitimate births.
You can have a child without getting married, and this child can be enrolled in the household registration and can inherit the family property. This means that the third and fourth mistresses have been legally recognized. The rich can have countless mistresses, and their legitimate children are protected. This is also allowing polygamy by default. You have really gone to great length to increase the fertility rate. Not only don't you lower the cost of raising children, you have also lowered the moral standards. The legal wives work hard to serve their in-laws, and then the illegitimate children come and inherit the estate. What do they get out of a marriage? What's the point of getting married?
Another factor that has made it difficult for the government to reverse the decline in fertility is cultural related. The one-child policy implemented by the CCP has caused a change in the social structure of the family, including family ethics. The only child grows up with too much attention from other members of the family and becomes a young stalwart of society as an adult. But generally speaking, they aren't as willing to take on the responsibilities of the family compared to their parents. If you ask them to organize a family and raise the next generation, they are likely to have neither the will nor the skills to do so. In China, there is a growing number of boomerang children, meaning adults who live off their parents. Some of the line flat groups are those boomerang children. Here we see this old lady in her 70s still working on the mountain as a sedan carrier. It is not uncommon as they carry a heavy load. For some developed countries or regions, one way to address the aging problem is to increase immigration, since most immigrants are young adults of working age. But China's peculiar red regime isn't appealing to make it a viable option to increase immigration. In most years, the number of applicants for Chinese citizenship was around 1,500 per year. Most were from Hong Kong. In stark contrast, hundreds of thousands of Chinese leave China every year. In times without COVID controls such as 2000 to 2015, the annual average number of immigrants was about 300,000. According to the latest edition of the World Migration Report 2022, published by the International Organization for Migration of UN, China is the fourth largest exporter of international migrants with about 10 million people. After 3 years of zero COVID policy in China and the increased control in various areas by the CCP leader Xi Jinping that indicates a shift to the Maoist era, even more Chinese are now going through the immigration process. Many of the Chinese who immigrate are either young people with strong credentials and capabilities or successful business people with considerable wealth. The exodus of young people will further exacerbate China's demographic imbalance and reduce its workforce, while the escape en masse of entrepreneurs and wealthy individuals will make it more difficult for China's economy to recover with less investment capital and technological capacity. Countries like Japan, Germany, and South Korea have been able to cope with their declining young populations by upgrading their technology so a small number of people can do a lot of work with the help of technology. But China lags far behind these countries in terms of technology. Coupled with the emigration of technology talents and professionals to Western countries, China's ability to innovate will also suffer.